My sister tried to steal my wedding venue and then told the whole family I was punishing her for being pregnant. When I tried to stand up for myself, she stormed off crying and called me selfish. I stayed silent. That was 2 months ago. Yesterday, she posted a sad selfie saying, "Missing my only sister's special day." My fiancé Jake and I booked our dream venue 3 years in advance. The only slot we got was September of this year. My sister Melissa got engaged a few months ago. They were planning on having a spring wedding next year. Yesterday, our parents invited us and our fiancé to a family BBQ, where my sister announced to our extended family that she is expecting. Everyone was so happy for her and my brother-in-law. My nan asked my sister if the wedding was still on the set date or if they were going to wait because of the baby. She said no, that she hoped to move it to September. Then she turned to me and said, "That's what I wanted to talk to you about. I was really hoping we could kinda like take your venue. I really cannot stress myself too much with planning a wedding while going to maternity classes. And I think it is so beautiful. It would really mean a lot to me." It went silent. But everyone was looking at me expecting me to say, "Yes, of course, anything for my little sister." My brother-in-law looked very uncomfortable and told her that they had talked about this and that it was not okay to put me on the spot. But my sister just said, "Don't be like that. My sister wants to do what's best for me, so it's no big deal, right?" I just said, "Well, it kind of is. I don't know. I have my heart really set on the venue." Cue the crying and storming off. Nan told me that I was being selfish because she needed the venue more than I did. I tried to defend myself and my mother said, "You waited 3 years. Would it have killed you to wait a few more months? When has your sister ever asked you for something?" A few comments later, my fiancé got really mad and we left. My sister called me crying and said that it was unfair that I always get what I want and that I could have done this one thing for her. Dad said it is just a venue and what matters is the person who you are marrying. My fiancé is furious with my family and doesn't even want my sister to come. Now my family is threatening not to come because I am being selfish and my sister needs it more than me because having a baby is too stressful. Thankfully, my brother-in-law called me and apologized for the inconvenience. He told me he had discussed it with my sister and she had told him she would not ask. He is properly mad with her now and warned me that my sister is blaming me for potentially ruining her marriage. My fiancé and I have decided to boot my sister from the bridal party. Then my mom took it upon herself to tell on us. She called my fiancé's parents and told them that it would be best if my sister gets it because she is pregnant and preeclampsia runs in the family. My future father-in-law told them to F off and basically ripped my mom a new one for expecting something so ridiculous and that they were going to lose me if they kept playing favorites. So my mom is now crying too and saying that my father-in-law is an a-hole. This is just getting so pathetic. My in-laws are driving to us currently with some supper and wine and basically told me to not worry and that no matter what happens that they will be my safety net. My sister then found out what my father-in-law had said and accused me of painting her like a loony and misinterpreting facts to everyone in my life. She said that I was being unfair, that she is family, and that she asked nicely because she loves me. The only text I sent back was, "I am sorry that you perceived it that way. I did not in any way distort what happened. Perhaps you have that night differently in your mind than I do, but I digress. I am sick and tired of bending to your will. My whole life I have been your servant and your doormat. Remember all the birthdays I had to share with you because you would throw a tantrum because you didn't get presents? Or when you cried so that I would fill out job applications for you? You're so selfish. Always have been, but I'm done. I admit that I also spoiled you, but I will not any longer. If you want to marry so badly before your baby is born, then you could look at Hotel X that offers last-minute weddings. I have spent too much time planning my wedding to give it to you. And if you want to ruin our relationship over this, then go ahead. I will sleep sound and safe knowing that it wasn't my fault. She only sent me, wow, you must love me so very much. So I blocked her. I couldn't deal with any more of her manipulation. Jake looked at me with raised eyebrows, clearly surprised I'd finally done it. "You okay?" he asked, rubbing my shoulder. I nodded, feeling a weird mix of guilt and relief. "I think I am." The doorbell rang, saving me from having to explain further. Jake's parents, Martha and Bill, stood there with 2 bags of takeout from our favorite Italian place and a bottle of expensive red wine. Martha pulled me into a hug immediately. She smelled like vanilla and that fancy perfume she always wears. "Oh, honey," she said, squeezing me tight. "What a mess." We set up dinner on our small dining table. Martha had brought everything: pasta, garlic bread, salad, even those little chocolate mints I love. Bill poured the wine while Martha plated the food. They were trying so hard to make things normal that it almost made me cry again. "So," Bill said once we were all seated, "your mother called us." I groaned and took a big sip of wine. "I'm so sorry about that." Bill waved his hand dismissively. "Don't apologize for her behavior. I've been wanting to say those things to her for years." Martha shot him a look. "Bill, what?" "It's true," he said, stabbing a piece of chicken with his fork. "They've always let Melissa walk all over everyone, especially you." He pointed his fork at me. "Remember when she showed up at your college graduation party 3 hours late and your mom made everyone wait to cut the cake?" I did remember. I'd been so embarrassed as my friends sat around waiting while my cake melted in the summer heat. Melissa had been at some party and lost track of time. When she finally showed up, my mom had fussed over her like she was the one graduating. "Or the time she borrowed your car without asking and returned it with an empty tank and a dent," Jake added. "And your parents said you should be more understanding because she was going through a breakup?" I nodded, pushing pasta around my plate. These memories were flooding back now. Years of small injustices I'd brushed aside to keep the peace. "Well, we're here for you," Martha said firmly. "No matter what, if they don't come to the wedding, that's their loss. We'll be there, and we'll make sure it's still the most special day." I felt tears welling up again. "Thank you. That means a lot." We spent the rest of the evening talking about happier things, final wedding details, Jake's recent promotion, Martha's garden. It felt so normal and supportive that for a few hours, I almost forgot about the family drama. After they left, Jake and I cleaned up together. I was loading the dishwasher when my phone rang. It was my dad. I hesitated, then answered. Hey Dad, I said, trying to sound casual. Your mother is very upset, he started. No greeting. She says Jake's father was extremely disrespectful to her. I closed the dishwasher with more force than necessary. Well, Mom called them trying to get them to pressure us into giving up our venue. That's pretty disrespectful too. Dad sighed that long-suffering sigh I knew so well. Look, I know Melissa can be difficult, but she's pregnant and emotional right now. Can't you just be the bigger person here? Why is it always me who has to be the bigger person? I asked, my voice rising. Why can't Melissa ever be the bigger person? Just once? Because that's not who she is, Dad said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. You know that. That answer hit me like a slap. Because that's not who she is. Like her personality was set in stone, while mine was expected to be endlessly flexible. Well, this is who I am, I said firmly. Someone who doesn't give up her wedding venue that she's been planning for 3 years. Dad was quiet for a moment. Your mother says you've kicked Melissa out of the bridal party. Yes, I confirmed. I don't think she should be my maid of honor anymore. Not after this. She's devastated, Dad said. She's been crying all day. I bit back a sarcastic comment about Melissa's convenient tears. I'm sorry she's upset, but my decision stands. Dad sighed again. Your mother and I need some time to think about this. I don't know if we can support a wedding that's causing this much division in the family. My stomach dropped. Are you saying you might not come? I'm saying we need time, he repeated. This isn't how families should treat each other. After we hung up, I told Jake what my dad had said. He was furious. They're actually considering not coming to our wedding because you won't give your spoiled sister our venue? He fumed, pacing around our living room. That's insane. I sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. I know. Do you want to postpone? Jake asked, sitting beside me. We could push it back, give everyone time to cool off. I shook my head firmly. Number absolutely not. That's exactly what they want. If we postpone, Melissa gets what she wants again, and the cycle continues. Jake nodded, looking relieved. Good, because I really don't want to postpone either. The next morning, I woke up to a flurry of text messages from extended family. Apparently, Melissa had been busy. My cousin Jenna sent screenshots of a group chat where Melissa was claiming I was punishing her for being pregnant, and always trying to one-up her. My Aunt Kathy asked if I was really being so cruel to my pregnant sister. Even my childhood friend Danielle, who knows what Melissa is like, texted asking what was going on, because Melissa had posted something vague but dramatic on Facebook about family betrayal. I spent the morning responding to messages, trying to calmly explain my side without sounding defensive. It was exhausting. By noon, I was emotionally drained and had a pounding headache. Jake suggested we turn off our phones and go for a hike to clear our heads. It was exactly what I needed. We drove to a nearby state park and spent hours walking trails, breathing fresh air, and not talking about wedding drama. The forest was cool and quiet, with sunlight filtering through the leaves. We spotted a deer with her fawn, watching us cautiously from a distance before bounding away. For those few hours, I felt almost normal again. When we got back to the car, I reluctantly turned my phone back on. 5 missed calls from my mom, 3 from Melissa's number, which meant she was calling from someone else's phone since I'd blocked her, and a text from Peter asking if we could talk. I called Peter back first, figuring he might be the most reasonable person in this situation. He answered immediately. Hey, thanks for calling back, he said, sounding tired. I wanted to apologize again. This whole thing has gotten completely out of hand. I leaned against our car, watching a family pack up their picnic nearby. It's not your fault, Peter. I feel like it is, partly, he said. I should have put my foot down harder when she first brought up this idea. She mentioned it weeks ago, and I told her it was inappropriate, but I should have been more firm. I was surprised to hear Melissa had been planning this for weeks. It hadn't been a spontaneous pregnancy hormone-induced request. She'd calculated it. Melissa is staying with her friend Sharon right now, Peter continued. She's still really upset, but I think she's starting to realize she crossed a line. Her friend actually told her she was being unreasonable. That was surprising. Sharon usually enabled Melissa's worst behavior. They'd been friends since elevated school and had always had a toxic, competitive friendship. Really? I couldn't keep the skepticism out of my voice. Yeah, even Sharon thought asking for your venue was too much, Peter said with a small laugh. That should tell you something. We talked for a few more minutes. Peter seemed genuinely sorry about the whole situation. Before we hung up, he hesitated, then added, just so you know, we've booked a small ceremony at the courthouse for next month. Nothing fancy, just us and a few witnesses. Melissa doesn't know I'm telling you this, but I thought you should know we found an alternative. I felt a wave of relief. That's great, Peter. I think that's a really good solution. Yeah, well, don't tell Melissa I told you. She's still set on your venue, but I'm hoping she'll come around to the courthouse idea when she calms down. After talking to Peter, I felt a little better. At least someone in this situation was being reasonable. I decided to call my mom back, hoping she might have calmed down too. No such luck. She answered on the first ring, launching immediately into a tirade about how I was tearing the family apart and how Melissa was so stressed that her doctor was concerned about her blood pressure. I listened silently, letting her vent. Are you even listening to me? She demanded when I didn't respond. Yes, Mom, I'm listening, I said wearily. But my answer is still no. I'm not giving up my venue. This isn't just about the venue anymore, she cried. This is about you refusing to support your sister during the most important time in her life. I took a deep breath. Mom, Peter told me they've booked a courthouse ceremony. That seems like a perfect solution. There was a pause. How do you know about that? Melissa doesn't even know yet. Peter told me, I admitted. He called to apologize again. Mom made a dismissive noise. A courthouse wedding? That's not a real wedding. Melissa deserves better than that. So do I said firmly. I deserve the wedding I've been planning for 3 years. You've always been so selfish, Mom snapped. Always thinking about yourself first. That stung, especially because it was so untrue. I'd spent my whole life accommodating Melissa, putting her needs before mine. But pointing that out would just lead to another argument. I have to go, Mom, I said instead. We can talk later when you're calmer. I hung up before she could respond and turned to Jake, who had been pretending not to listen while leaning against the car. Not good? He asked. I shook my head. Not good. The next week was a blur of wedding preparations and family drama. My mom started calling Jake's parents daily, trying to get them to intervene. Martha politely but firmly told her that they supported our decision completely. This led to my mom calling me to complain about how that woman was being difficult. Meanwhile, Melissa had apparently told all our relatives that I was forcing her to have a shameful courthouse wedding because I was jealous of her pregnancy. My cousin Malcolm, who I'd always been close with, called to ask what was really going on. After I explained, he was firmly on my side and promised to set the record straight with the rest of the family. Melissa's always been like this, he said. Remember when she showed up in a white dress to Aunt Kathy's wedding? I had forgotten about that. Melissa had been 16 at the time and had thrown a fit about the junior bridesmaid dress being unflattering. She'd shown up in a white sundress instead, causing a minor scandal. Thanks, Malcolm, I said gratefully. It means a lot to have someone else in the family understand. Of course, he replied. And don't worry, Dominic and I will definitely be at your wedding, no matter what drama Melissa tries to stir up. That was another weight off my shoulders. Malcolm and his husband Dominic were two of my favorite relatives, and the thought of them missing my wedding had been bothering me. 2 weeks before the wedding, I got a call from the venue coordinator, Ariel. My stomach dropped when I saw their number on my caller ID. Had my family gone behind my back somehow? Hi, Ariel, I answered cautiously. Is everything okay with the booking? Oh, everything's fine with your reservation, they assured me quickly. I'm actually calling because we've had someone inquiring about booking your exact date and package. They said they were your sister and that you were planning to cancel but hadn't gotten around to it yet. I just wanted to check directly with you before proceeding. I felt a cold fury wash over me. Melissa had actually called the venue pretending I was going to cancel. This was a new low, even for her. I am absolutely not canceling, I said firmly. That's my sister, and we're having a disagreement. But under no circumstances should you take any direction from her. Our wedding is proceeding as planned. Ariel sounded relieved. That's what I thought. Don't worry. We've made a note in the system that only you or your fiancé can make any changes to the booking. After I hung up, I immediately called Jake at work to tell him what happened. He was as angry as I was. That's it, he said. I'm calling your parents. This has gone too far. I tried to talk him out of it, but he was determined. He called my dad from his office and apparently had a very direct conversation. Jake later told me he'd made it clear that if Melissa's behavior continued, she would not be welcome at our wedding at all, and that if my parents chose not to attend because of that, it would permanently damage their relationship with both of us. To my surprise, my dad called me that evening, sounding subdued. Jake called me, he said without preamble. He told me about Melissa trying to cancel your venue. Yeah, I confirmed. She did that. Dad was quiet for a moment. I spoke to her. That was inappropriate. She shouldn't have done that. It was the first time anyone in my immediate family had acknowledged that Melissa was in the wrong. I was so surprised I didn't know what to say. Your mother and I have been talking, Dad continued. We will be at your wedding, no matter what happens with Melissa. I felt tears spring to my eyes. Really? Yes, Dad said firmly. You're our daughter too. We should have been more supportive from the beginning. After that conversation, things started to shift slightly. Mom was still frosty with me, but she stopped actively campaigning for me to give up the venue. She started asking practical questions about the wedding instead, like what time they should arrive and whether Dad's navy suit was appropriate. Melissa, however, escalated her campaign. She started posting passive-aggressive quotes on social media about true family and supporting each other in times of need. She tagged me in a post about toxic siblings that I promptly untagged myself from. She even sent a group email to our extended family detailing all the times I had supposedly wronged her throughout our lives, conveniently omitting all the times she'd taken advantage of me. The most bizarre moment came when she showed up at my workplace with Peter in tow, looking teary-eyed and holding her barely visible baby bump. I work at a marketing firm in a downtown office building, and I was in the middle of a client meeting when our receptionist Nancy messaged me that my sister was in the lobby, insisting on seeing me. I excused myself from the meeting and found Melissa sitting dramatically in a lobby chair, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue while Peter stood awkwardly beside her, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. Melissa, what are you doing here? I asked, conscious of my colleagues watching curiously from their desks. I needed to talk to you in person, she said, her voice wobbling. You've blocked my number and you're ignoring my emails. I'm at work, I hissed, mortified. This isn't appropriate. Nothing about how you're treating me is appropriate, she said, her voice rising. I'm carrying your niece or nephew, and you won't even help me have a proper wedding. Peter put his hand on her arm. Melissa, this isn't the place. I told you we should have called first. She shook him off. No, I'm tired of being ignored. Everyone needs to know how selfish my sister is being. By this point, several of my coworkers had stopped pretending to work and were openly watching the scene unfold. My boss, Keith, emerged from his office with a concerned expression. Everything okay out here? He asked, looking between me and Melissa. I'm so sorry, I said, feeling my face burn with embarrassment. This is my sister. She was just leaving. No, I'm not, Melissa protested, standing up. Not until you agree to talk to me. Keith, bless him, stepped in smoothly. Why don't you use the small conference room? Take 15 minutes, sort this out, and then we need to get back to the Johnson presentation. I nodded gratefully and led Melissa and Peter to the conference room, closing the door firmly behind us. As soon as we were alone, I turned on Melissa. What the hell are you doing? I demanded. You can't just show up at my workplace and cause a scene. You've left me no choice, she shot back. You're ignoring me everywhere else. Because you're being completely unreasonable, I said, trying to keep my voice down. You tried to cancel my venue booking by pretending to be me. Do you have any idea how crazy that is? Melissa had the grace to look slightly ashamed, but she recovered quickly. I was desperate. You're not listening to reason. Reason? I laughed incredulously. What's reasonable about demanding I give up my wedding venue 2 months before my wedding? I'm pregnant, she said, as if that explained everything. I need to get married before I start showing too much. Then go with the courthouse plan Peter arranged, I said, glancing at Peter, who was studying the carpet intently. Or find another venue. There are plenty of places that do last-minute bookings. But I want your venue, she insisted. It's perfect, and you know it. Yes, I know know it's perfect. That's why I booked it 3 years ago. We went back and forth like this for several minutes, getting nowhere. Finally, Peter stepped in. Melissa, this isn't helping, he said firmly. We've already booked the courthouse. Your sister isn't going to change her mind. And honestly, she shouldn't have to. Melissa turned on him, eyes flashing. Whose side are you on? Yours, always, he said tiredly. But that doesn't mean I think you're right about this. She stared at him for a long moment, then burst into tears again. Nobody understands. Nobody cares about what I need. I checked my watch. My 15 minutes were almost up, and I needed to get back to my meeting. I have to go. Please don't come to my workplace again. Fine, Melissa sniffled. But this isn't over. After they left, I had to splash cold water on my face in the bathroom before returning to my meeting. My colleague Wesley gave me a sympathetic look as I slid back into my seat, and Keith smoothly picked up where we'd left off without commenting on my family drama. I made a mental note to thank him later with a coffee, and maybe some of those pastries he likes from the bakery down the street. That evening, I got a call from my mom. I braced myself for another lecture, but she sounded subdued. Your father told me about Melissa showing up at your office, she said. That wasn't appropriate. I nearly dropped my phone in shock. You think so? Yes, Mom said, sighing. She shouldn't have done that. I've told her as much. We were quiet for a moment. Then Mom said, I've been thinking about what your father said, about how we've always expected you to accommodate Melissa. I held my breath, waiting. I don't think that's entirely fair, she continued. But maybe there's some truth to it. Melissa has always been more demanding, and you've always been so self-sufficient. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was the closest my mother had ever come to acknowledging the dynamic between Melissa and me. Thanks, Mom, I said softly. That means a lot. Don't get me wrong, she added quickly. I still think you could have been more understanding about the venue situation, but I understand why you feel the way you do. Baby steps, I thought. The next day, I got a text from Peter asking if we could meet for coffee. I was wary, but agreed. We met at a small cafe near my office during my lunch break. Peter looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes and his shirt slightly rumpled. Thanks for meeting me, he said, stirring his coffee absently. I wanted to talk to you without Melissa present. I nodded, waiting for him to continue. I've convinced her to go forward with the courthouse wedding, he said. It's scheduled for next Friday. Just us, her friend Sharon as witness, and my brother. That's good, I said cautiously. I'm glad you found a solution. Peter nodded. Yeah, it's not what she wanted, but it's the best option right now. He hesitated, then added, I also wanted to let you know that we won't be attending your wedding. I felt a pang of sadness, despite everything. Because of all this drama? Partly, he admitted, but also because Melissa's due date is closer than we initially thought. The doctor moved it up at our last appointment. She'll be almost 7 months pregnant by your wedding date, and with her blood pressure issues, the doctor advised against traveling. I nodded, relieved there was a medical reason, and not just spite. I understand. Thanks for letting me know. Peter looked at me for a long moment. You know, Melissa isn't a bad person. She's always gotten her way. Your parents, her friends, even her teachers growing up always gave in to her. I think this is the first time someone's really stood up to her. I couldn't help but laugh. Well, it's about time, I guess. Peter smiled slightly. Yeah, maybe it is. His expression turned serious again. I love her, but I know she can be difficult. This whole situation, it's been a wake-up call for me too, about what our marriage might be like. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded sympathetically. Anyway, Peter continued, I wanted to apologize again for all the drama, and to wish you and Jake the best for your wedding. I hope it's everything you've been planning for. Thanks, Peter, I said sincerely. And congratulations on the courthouse wedding, and the baby. He smiled, looking genuinely happy for the first time in our conversation. Thanks. Despite everything, I am excited about becoming a dad. We parted on good terms, and I walked back to my office feeling like a weight had been lifted. At least one part of this mess was resolved. The week before our wedding was a whirlwind of final preparations. My parents came into town early to help, and to my surprise, they were actually being supportive. Mom helped me with last-minute details and even apologized properly for how she'd handled the situation. I should have supported you from the beginning, she said as we folded place cards at my dining table. I've always expected you to be the reasonable one, and that's not fair. I hugged her, feeling tears prick my eyes. Thanks, Mom. That means a lot. Dad was making an effort too, bonding with Jake over baseball and helping with some of the heavy lifting for the wedding. It was nice to see them getting along. The day before our wedding, I got a text from Melissa. It was the first direct communication we'd had since the office incident. I opened it with trepidation. Congratulations on your wedding tomorrow. Peter told me he met with you. We had our courthouse ceremony yesterday. It wasn't what I wanted, but it was nice in its own way. I'm still hurt that you wouldn't help me, but I understand why you stood your ground. Maybe someday we can talk about all this. For now, I hope your day is special. It wasn't an apology. Not really, but it was an olive branch of sorts. I showed the text to Jake, who read it with raised eyebrows. Well, that's something, I guess, he said. Are you going to respond? I thought about it for a moment, then typed, thank you. Congratulations on your courthouse wedding and the baby. I hope we can talk properly sometime after the wedding. Short and sweet, but sincere. I wasn't ready to forgive everything, but I was willing to leave the door open for reconciliation down the road. That night, at our rehearsal dinner, surrounded by our closest friends and family, minus Melissa and Peter, of course, I finally felt like I could breathe again. Jake's best man, Wesley, gave a hilarious toast that had everyone in stitches. My cousin Malcolm and his husband Dominic presented us with a beautiful handmade quilt as an early wedding gift. Jake's parents beamed proudly from across the table, and my parents actually looked happy and relaxed. As I looked around at everyone who had come to support us, I realized something important. Standing up for myself hadn't ruined everything, as I'd feared. Yes, there had been drama and tears and difficult conversations, but in the end, the people who truly loved me had respected my decision and stood by me. Tomorrow, I would marry Jake in our dream venue, the one we'd waited 3 years for, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty about getting what I wanted. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, I felt a profound sense of peace wash over me. This journey had been difficult, but it had taught me something invaluable about setting boundaries and standing firm. Whatever challenges Jake and I might face in our marriage, I knew we would face them together, as equals, supporting each other every step of the way. As I laid in bed that night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. Jake was snoring softly next to me, but my mind kept racing through everything that had happened. The venue drama, drama, the family fights, Melissa's courthouse wedding, it was a lot to process. I scrolled through my phone, checking last-minute wedding details and rereading Melissa's text. Part of me wished she could be there tomorrow, but another part was relieved she wouldn't be. No chance of last-minute drama. I must have fallen asleep eventually because next thing I knew, my alarm was blaring. Wedding day. Holy crap. I nudged Jake awake and we shared a sleepy smile before reality hit us both. Today was the day. We had to get moving. Jake headed off to get ready with his groomsmen at his parents' rental house, while I met my bridesmaids at the hotel suite we'd booked. My best friend Danielle had stepped up as maid of honor after Melissa got booted, and she was already there with mimosas and breakfast when I arrived. "The bride is here," she announced, and everyone cheered. My 3 other bridesmaids, my college roommate Bobby, Jake's sister Sharon, and my cousin Nancy all rushed over to hug me. The next few hours were a blur of hairstyling, makeup application, and nervous laughter. My mom showed up halfway through, carrying my veil that she'd been steaming at home. "You look beautiful, honey," she said, getting a little teary-eyed. I was surprised by how normal everything felt. After all the drama, having my mom there helping me get ready seemed so ordinary, in a good way. The makeup artist was just finishing up when my phone buzzed with a text from Malcolm. "Heads up, Melissa just posted on Facebook about missing her only sister's special day with a sad selfie. Thought you should know before someone mentions it." I showed Danielle, who rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. Classic Melissa, making your wedding day about her somehow. I decided not to let it bother me. Whatever. She's not here, and that's actually a good thing. The photographer arrived and started taking getting ready shots. I slipped into my dress with my mom and Danielle's help, careful not to mess up my hair or makeup. When I finally looked in the mirror, I almost didn't recognize myself. The dress fit perfectly, the vintage lace catching the light just right. "Holy crap," Bobby whispered. "You look incredible." We all piled into the decorated SUVs that would take us to the venue. The weather was perfect. When we pulled up to the venue, I gasped. It looked even more beautiful than I remembered from our visits. The staff had decorated everything exactly as planned. White chairs set up facing the lake, wildflower arrangements lining the aisle, fairy lights strung through the trees ready to be lit when evening came. I waited in a small room inside the main building while guests arrived. My dad came in, looking handsome in his suit, and actually teared up when he saw me. "You ready, kiddo?" he asked, offering his arm. I nodded, suddenly too emotional to speak. We stood by the doors, waiting for our cue. I could hear the string quartet playing outside, and the murmur of guests finding their seats. Then the coordinator gave us the signal, the music changed, and the bridesmaids started their procession. My dad squeezed my arm. "I'm sorry about everything with Melissa," he said quietly. "This is your day, and you deserve it." I squeezed back, surprised and touched. "Thanks, Dad." Then it was our turn. We stepped outside, and everyone stood up. I immediately locked eyes with Jake, who was waiting at the end of the aisle looking so handsome in his suit. His face when he saw me, I'll never forget it. Pure joy and love and a little bit of awe. I felt exactly the same looking at him. The ceremony was perfect. We'd written our own vows, and Jake's made me cry, and made everyone laugh when he promised to always kill the spiders. The celebrant was warm and personal, having met with us several times to get our story right. When we were pronounced married, Jake dipped me for our kiss, which got a huge cheer from everyone. We signed the papers, took some quick photos with the wedding party, and then headed to the cocktail hour while the photographer wrangled our families for formal portraits. Jake's family was easy. His parents, his sister Sharon and her husband, his grandma Eileen, who was thrilled to pieces to be there at 92 years old. My family was, well, my family. Mom kept fussing with my veil for the photos. Dad kept making awkward jokes to lighten the mood. My Aunt Kathy asked twice if we'd heard from Melissa today. But we got through it, and the photos looked great from what I could see on the photographer's camera screen. The reception was in the converted barn, which looked magical with all the lighting and flowers. Our first dance went off without a hitch. We'd practiced for weeks, and the food was amazing. I actually got to eat some, which apparently is rare for brides. The speeches were mostly great. Jake's best man Wesley told some embarrassing but sweet stories about their college days. Danielle made everyone cry with her speech about how Jake had brought me out of my shell. My dad's speech was short but heartfelt, talking about how proud he was of the woman I'd become. Then came the surprise. My mom asked for the microphone. I tensed up immediately because this wasn't planned. Jake grabbed my hand under the table, both of us preparing for something. Mom smoothed her dress nervously and cleared her throat. "I know I'm not on the program, but I wanted to say something." She looked directly at me. "I haven't always been the mother you deserved. I've often put your sister's needs before yours because she was louder about them. But watching you stand your ground these past few weeks has made me realize how strong you are, and how much I've taken that strength for granted." The room was dead silent. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I'm so proud of you," Mom continued, her voice wobbling slightly. "Not just for this beautiful wedding that you planned so carefully, but for becoming a woman who knows her worth and doesn't let anyone, even family, push her around. I hope you know how much I love you, and how sorry I am for not supporting you from the start." I was full on crying now. Jake handed me a napkin, looking as shocked as I felt. Mom raised her glass. "To the bride and groom, may your marriage be built on the mutual respect and love that you've already shown each other." Everyone cheered and drank. I got up and hugged my mom tight, both of us crying now. "Thank you," I whispered. "That means everything." She squeezed me back. "I mean it. And I'm working on things with Melissa too. This situation opened my eyes to a lot of patterns we need to break." The rest of the reception was a blast. The dance floor was packed all night. The cake was delicious, and I lost count of how many people told us it was the most beautiful wedding they'd ever attended. Around midnight, Jake and I made our exit through a tunnel of sparklers held by our guests, climbed into the vintage car we'd rented, and headed to the fancy hotel downtown, where we were spending our wedding night before flying to Costa Rica the next day. In our hotel room, finally alone, we kicked off our shoes and collapsed onto the bed, exhausted, but happy. "We did it," Jake said, loosening his tie. "We're married." And the venue was perfect. I added, grinning. Worth fighting for? Absolutely, he agreed, pulling me close. I'm proud of you, you know. Standing up to your family wasn't easy. I snuggled against him, thinking about everything that had happened. It was actually kind of worth it, not just for the venue, but I feel like something shifted, with my parents especially. Jake nodded. Your mom's speech was unexpected. Completely, I agreed, but nice, really nice. We were too tired to talk much more, but as I drifted off to sleep in my new husband's arms, I felt at peace with how everything had turned out. The next morning, we woke up to a flood of texts and social media notifications from guests saying what an amazing time they'd had. There was also a message from Peter with a photo of Melissa at their courthouse wedding, looking pretty in a simple, white dress with a small baby bump visible. His text said, "Thought you might want to see this. We're both sorry for everything. Hope you had a perfect day." I showed Jake, who nodded approvingly. That's decent of him. I texted back a simple, "Thank you. She looks beautiful. Congratulations again to you both." We had breakfast in bed, packed our things, and headed to the airport for our honeymoon. As we waited at the gate, I scrolled through the wedding photos that guests had already posted online. Everyone looked so happy, especially us. My phone rang. It was Malcolm. "Hey, just checking you're okay. Saw you replied to Peter's message." "I'm good," I assured him. "Really good, actually. The wedding was perfect." "It was," he agreed. "And listen, I talked to Melissa yesterday." My stomach tightened. "Oh? Yeah. She called to ask how it went. I think she's feeling some regret about how everything played out. She asked a lot of questions about the venue, the food, your dress. Not in a jealous way. More like she was trying to picture being there. I wasn't sure how to feel about that." "Did she say anything else?" "Just that she hopes you had a good day, and that maybe you guys can talk when you get back from your honeymoon." I think the courthouse thing humbled her a bit. Plus, Peter's been standing his ground more. "Good for him," I said, meaning it. "And yeah, maybe we can talk when I get back." After we hung up, Jake asked what Malcolm had said. I filled him in as our flight started boarding. "So, potential reconciliation with Melissa?" he asked as we found our seats. I shrugged. "Maybe. On my terms this time, though." "That's fair," Jake said, helping me stow my carry-on. "Just don't let her guilt you into anything. Trust me, those days are over," I said firmly. Our flight took off, and as I watched the city disappear beneath the clouds, I thought about everything that had happened. The venue drama had been stressful and painful, but it had forced some necessary conversations and changes. My parents were finally seeing the unhealthy patterns they'd created. Melissa might be starting to recognize her behavior. And most importantly, I had learned to stand up for myself. We spent 2 amazing weeks in Costa Rica, hiking through rainforests, lounging on beaches, and completely forgetting about family drama. It was exactly the break we needed. On our last night, sitting on our balcony watching the sunset over the ocean, Jake asked if I was nervous about going home and potentially facing Melissa. "Not really," I said honestly. "Whatever happens, happens. I'm not going to stress about it anymore." When we got back, there was a package waiting at our apartment. It was from Melissa and Peter, a belated wedding gift with a card. The gift was a beautiful handmade photo album, and the card had a long note from Melissa. "I'm sorry for trying to take your venue and for all the drama I caused. Watching your wedding photos online, I could see how perfect it was for you and Jake. I was selfish and didn't think about how much work you'd put into planning everything. Pregnancy hormones aren't an excuse for how I behaved. I hope someday you can forgive me and we can be close again. I want my baby to know their amazing aunt." It wasn't a perfect apology. Melissa still couldn't resist mentioning her pregnancy as a partial excuse, but it was sincere enough that I decided to call her. Our conversation was awkward at first, but gradually became easier. She asked about Costa Rica, and I asked about her pregnancy. She told me they'd moved the due date up again because she was having twins, which explained why she was showing earlier than expected. I congratulated her, genuinely happy for her despite everything. "So," she said eventually, "are we okay?" I took a deep breath. "We're getting there. This isn't something that gets fixed with one phone call, Melissa. You tried to take something really important from me, and then you made me the bad guy when I said no." "I know," she said quietly. "I've been thinking about it a lot. Mom and I had a long talk about patterns, about how I've always expected to get my way." That surprised me. "Mom said that?" "Yeah. She said she and Dad enabled it, but that I'm an adult now and need to do better. Peter's been saying the same thing." "They're right," I said simply. "I know," she repeated. "I'm working on it. Therapy and stuff. The twins are making me think about what kind of mom I want to be, what kind of example I want to set." We talked a bit longer, making tentative plans to get together for dinner with our husbands in a few weeks. It wasn't a complete reconciliation, but it was a start. Over the next few months, things slowly improved. Melissa and I started texting regularly. She actually apologized again, more sincerely this time, after her therapist helped her understand how her actions had affected me. I went with her to a few baby appointments when Peter couldn't make it. We weren't best friends, but we were rebuilding our relationship on healthier terms. My parents changed too. Mom made a real effort to treat us equally, and Dad stopped expecting me to always be the one to compromise. They were excited about becoming grandparents, but made sure to show interest in my life too. 6 months after our wedding, Melissa gave birth to twin girls, Olivia and Emma. I was one of her first visitors at the hospital. Holding my tiny nieces, I felt nothing but love for them and hope for our family's future. "They're beautiful," I told Melissa, who looked exhausted but happy in her hospital bed. "Thanks," she said, then added with a small smile, "And thanks for not giving up on me. I wouldn't have blamed you if you had." I shrugged. "You're my sister. It's complicated sometimes, but that doesn't change." As I handed one of the twins back to her, I realized how true that was. Family relationships are messy and imperfect. Standing up for myself hadn't ruined our relationship. It had actually created the opportunity to build a healthier one. That night, as Jake and I looked through the hospital photos of the twins, he asked if I had any regrets about how everything had played out. "Not a single one," I said confidently. "Our wedding was perfect, and now we have 2 adorable nieces. Everything worked out exactly as it should have." Jake smiled and pulled me close. "So the moral of the story is," I laughed and poked him in the ribs, "there are no moral smarty pants. Just life being messy and complicated and us figuring it out as we go." And really, that was enough.